Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. And I just thought I'd do this video. I wanted to get it out there before Christmas because Christmas is a great time of year for celebrating, thinking about family and being with those that you love. But for a lot of us out there, we've lost somebody that we love, usually close to Christmas time. So personally, I've lost my sister sort of a couple of years ago. Prior to that, I also lost my mother back in 2007 in January. So it always brings back those memories to me as well. And I think I'm not alone in that fact. So I just wanted to create something special to remember my sister by. So this video is going to be probably a little bit emotional, and it's how you can make a nice sort of memorial plaque with ashes to hopefully commemorate somebody's life and remember them when they're no longer with you. So she's actually the reason why I got this tattoo on my arm as well, which is basically an eye with a teardrop and a wheelchair in the centre. So that's what this video is about. It might get a little bit emotional, but let's get straight into it and hopefully it can help somebody out there. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. This is going to be quite a long project and it could be quite an emotional one, to be honest with you. So I just want to give you a bit of a background. So I used to live abroad in Hungary for around about 10 years when I was a child. And the reason why was my sister. She was disabled, she had cerebral palsy and spina bifida, and there was a special clinic out there what taught her how to walk, and she was an absolutely amazing person. Now, unfortunately, I lost her a couple of years ago, and I still haven't been able to sort of spread her ashes, because the plan is for me is I want to go back to Hungary, where for me she was at her happiest before we came back to the UK, and she met Princess Diana. She swam for the British paraplegic squad and everything when we came back, so she was really happy out there. So the plan is over the next couple of years to go out there and actually spread her ashes. But I also wanted a memorial piece to always remember her by, and I've been working with resin for a while now, and I think I can now. I'm at the point where I think I can actually create something really special using some of those ashes in the piece, so that even when I do get to eventually spread those ashes, she's still, I suppose, always with me in that way. So it's going to be a long project. It's probably going to get a little bit emotional at times, especially when I'm using the ashes, because I think it is very, very emotional doing that, but it's just something that I wanted to do, so I've always got something to remember by. So I have ordered some different molds, and it's going to be quite a few stages in this process, because I almost want it to be a bit of an A4 plaque, but I'm taking sort of different styles and techniques that I've seen from different people and trying to combine them all into one. So I've got this angel wings mold from, I think it was just from Temu, so I'm thinking that will be great for the wings, is the plan. I've got this, I suppose it's just a traditional heart mold, and the plan is this is what the ashes are going to go in with another mica or something like that to give it a little bit of colour. I've got a standard alphabet mold as well, so I will be putting her name in the piece as well, as a sort of memory. And then I've got some titanium dioxide powder. And the reason why is I want this almost to look like the sky. So I want to try this to make some clouds, and I saw a video by Daniel Cooper on making clouds out of these and almost that 3D effect, and I thought that looked amazing. So I'm going to try and put this in there. And this is ultimately, hopefully, going to be the size. Now, I'm going to do a couple of test pieces as well, just to see what it looks like before I actually risk putting any of those ashes in there. But I just think it will be nice to have this plaque, I suppose, as a permanent reminder for me of my sister, so that when I do eventually spread her ashes, I still feel like she's with me and sort of watching me, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start off the process with what I think will be the simplest part, which will just be the alphabet. So spelling out the name sort of thing, and I'm just gonna probably use a couple of different micas just to spell out that name to create that effect. But again, what I've got to bear in mind for this whole project is I've got to be conscious that I don't want it to come out of this mould too much. Now this mould I know holds around about, I think it's 24 ounces. There's a bit of thickness to play with, but not an awful lot. But I do want the whole thing to almost look like clouds with those wings there in the centre, the heart in the middle and the name on the bottom. So I'm really hoping that I can pull all of my skills together and make this one a success. So if that's what you're interested in, let's get gloved up and let's get straight to it. So here we go, guys. So the first part I'm going to concentrate on is just her name. So very usefully, her name was Dawn, by the way, and I've got this standard alphabet mold which I'm going to use, and then I'm going to concentrate on these wings as well, because I just want to see how they're going to fit into that piece as well before I go any further. And what I am going to do as well at the same time is just do one of these hearts as a test piece, basically, so that I know roughly the shapes and sizes that I'm going to be working with within that mold. Now what I'm going to be using as well is I'm going to be using the Apex Fast Cure, and the reason why is it cures within 2 hours. So hopefully in 2 hours time I can demold these pieces. You could do it with UV resin and things like that, which I am going to be using in another part of the project, but I wanted to use epoxy because obviously the whole thing is eventually going to be covered in resin as well. So I'm just going to mix up some of this resin, not too much, probably I'm thinking about 20 mils per letter, and then the heart and then the wing. So I'm probably going to do a few ounces actually. So I'm going to go for 4 ounces just to make sure I've got enough resin. But I'm also conscious that I've only got a 20-minute working time as well. So I'm going to mix up 4 ounces of this resin, put it through the debubbler as always, and then we're going to get on with this first stage of the process. So there we go, guys. I've just mixed that around, and I haven't put it through the debubbler because I'm going to be adding pigments or micas to this, so I don't think it'll make a huge difference. It's the first time I've used this alphabet mold as well, so it'll be interesting to see just what those letters come out like. So I'm just going to separate it in sort of 3 separate pots for the 3 different projects that I'm going to be working on. I might need a little bit more as well, but we'll see how we get on. And with this being the 2-hour fast cure, within 2.5 hours I should be able to demold these pieces and start to play around with what the end piece would actually look like, sizes, proportions wise and things like that. So we will see how we get on. So just mix that into sort of 3 separate pots, and I've still got a little bit left in this cup as well. So with the first pot, as I say, I'm going to be concentrating on these letters. I've got this metallic purple, which is really nice. For me, it doesn't have enough of a shimmer for a piece like this though, so I am going to try adding some glitter, ultra fine glitter to it as well. Purple was actually one of her favourite colours, so I think it's quite apt that I'm going to be using purple. And again, whenever you're using these pastes, just mix it around and whatever's left on your stick should work. So there we go. So that's my purple, and as I say, I'm going to mix it around first just to see what the colour comes out like. It should be quite a dark deep purple. There we go. And then just to add something, it has still got that metallic shimmer though, so I do like that, but I just want a little bit of sparkle in it with the fact that this is going to be quite a special piece, I think, to me. So I'm going to be using some of this ultra fine laser glitter that I've got from Resiners, just because I think it doesn't sink and it should blend quite nicely into the colour schemes that I'm going to be using. And again, I might even use some of this in the angel wings and the heart as well, just so there's going to be something that's going through the whole piece. And again, just 1 scoop of that, maybe a touch more actually. So 1.5 scoops of that ultra fine glitter. And again, I'm not particularly into my glitter and my sparkles, but Dawn was, so hopefully she would like what I'm doing here. And again, I think it's quite an emotional time of year for me. December is one of those months where you start to think about family and those that aren't with you anymore, you know, and it does get quite emotional. I lost my mum in January of 2007 as well, so it's always a reminder, but I think you've got to put a brave face on, especially if you've got kids like me, to try and celebrate. But I know for a lot of people it's not their favourite time of year, but I'm loving that colour with the purple and the glitter, so hopefully stage 1 is going to be a success. So I'm just going to as I say, just pour it into the letters that I want. And I've just noticed there is a tiny bit of something in that mould which I don't want in there. So I'm just going to use my dotting tool. I think it's a piece of cured resin somehow, which is bizarre since I've never used the mould. But again, you want to make sure, especially if you're doing a special piece like this, there's nothing that can stop your piece turning out. So I'm just checking the letters that I'm going to be using, and that looks okay now. So I need a D first of all, and I know this is quite a thick resin, so I'm going to show you a quick tip in a minute. I'm just going to get enough resin in to give me the coverage. That's an A. And with these letters, actually I do want these to be quite full, because I think these will be the full depth of that mould, that A4 mould. So I do want to pretty much almost fill these to the top. D-A, where's the W? W, and then N. And if you can hear snoring in the background, it's not me, it is Reggie, so apologies for that. I'm just going to pour a little bit more in each of these, just to make sure that they're all reasonably full. And again, I might not like the look of these when they're done, so if that's the case, I'll think of something different. But I think it's important to test these things as well, especially if you're working with something as important as somebody's ashes, because there's no going back once you put them in, you know. And yes, you could do another one, but again, you don't really want to be sort of working with something as important as that and then things go wrong. And in fact, I'm not going to have to do the trick, because they have almost self-leveled now, which is good. And I want them almost to the top. Doesn't matter if they're not quite, as long as they're reasonably even. And then what I am going to do, just because I've got my dotting tool as well, is just go around them all. A, to help it spread, but also I think it should I'm also trying to get right down to the bottom to stop any bubbles that might be attached to the sides, like so. And as I say, I'm just really hoping with this one I get a success. When something's got a lot of meaning to it, I think you've really got to go that extra mile and pray that you get a successful project. So let's hope. Fingers crossed. Here we go. And hopefully that's just encouraging any bubbles that might be in there up to the surface. So that is those pretty much. I'm just going to go over them very gently with my torch to make sure there's no big bubbles on that surface, and then we'll see what they come out like. Now with the hearts, I've still got some of this left, so I'm going to just pour some of this into a heart mould that I've got to the side. I don't know if I can actually get you on camera for me to do that. Let me just move the angle. There we go. Like so. And again, I just want to see what this is going to look like. And I'm going to do something else as well in a minute, just to test something. So this is just standard. And I suppose it's for me to just see the colour and to use up the rest of this resin. So that is that one. And as you can see, I've probably used all of that colour now. But what I am going to do is just mix a tiny bit of it. So I've still got some in there with a little bit of this resin. And I'm going to need a tiny bit of that paste again, just because I want to see what the other glitter would look like in there as well. I've got some gold, and I want to see which colour scheme for me looks the best with this deep dark purple, because I was umming and ahhing between the gold and the silver. So I'm just going to add a bit of gold glitter to this and just do a second heart to have a look. And again, tiniest bit of this purple, not a lot needed at all. And then just mixing it around, and I'm going to pour a second one of these hearts, and I'm hoping I've left enough. So again, just going to pour this all into the one pretty much next to the silver one. so that we can just compare the two once they're cured. Again, it's the first time I've used this mould as well, so we'll see what they turn out like in general. But that is those. So that's my hearts, that's my letters done. Again, just getting rid of any bubbles that might be on that surface. And now to concentrate on these angel wings. So I think I want these predominantly white, essentially. But again, I want them to have a bit of a sparkle to them. And I think with the white, I've got two different choices here. I can try and use some alcohol ink and Sinker, or I can mix up a really strong mica, and I don't think I want them to be that vibrant. So I think I'm going to just try mixing up some C-Deeper alcohol ink and putting some glitter effects in there as well. So we'll see how we go and what it looks like when it's cured. And again, I might have to reevaluate if I don't like the end look. But I'm just thinking the C-Deeper alcohol ink gives quite a feathery, cloudy white rather than a really strong white, which I'm probably going to get from my clouds that I'm going to make later on. So all I'm going to do to this is, I want silver glitter, I think, for this, rather than the gold. So I've got a cup full of the resin here. Again, I don't want it to be too much, but I do want there to be a bit of a sparkle in these wings. And I've never used them before, so I don't know what they're actually going to come out like. So again, just one scoop of that glitter. Doesn't have to be too much. I think you can go overboard with glitter. And then I'm going to put in some drops of my C-Deeper. And I toyed around with playing with the spores effect as well, but I don't really want that, I don't think, for the wings. So I'm just shaking up the C-Deeper, making sure the pigment's nicely mixed. And I'm going to put 10 to 15 drops in, I think, because I want it to be reasonably strong colour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I actually ended up putting 25 in. That's what my gut was telling me. So 25 drops of just that Sinker white alcohol ink. And then I'm going to just mix that all around with this glitter. And pour it in and see what it looks like when it's cured. And if I'm not happy with the effect, I'll do something else. But I just wanted to do this as more of a test, really. I think it's got a lovely colour to it in the pot. And hopefully it'll just have that nice shimmer as well, which will contrast nice with the clouds. So again, I'm not needing these to be completely full either. I just want at least the base of it to be fully covered with the resin. Because I think that's the risk. If I've got everything completely filled in these moulds as well, then it might not leave me enough to put the background in that I want. So that's about 3/4 full. Going to go in with the rest in the second wing and just see if I've got enough. I don't think I will have, so I'll need to mix up that extra cup, definitely. So I've guesstimated the resin amounts about right. So again, trying to do exactly the same blend here, where it's going to be 1 scoop of the glitter and 25 drops of that C-Deeper. And hopefully it should give us a reasonably even colour match. But really, at this point, I'm just testing the letters. I'm hoping that they're going to be the ones that I actually use. But I need to see what these are actually going to look like inside that A4 mould before I can continue with anything else. So again, just going to pour it around, making sure that it's about the same level as the other one. About 3/4 of the way full is what I'm looking for. And if I've got any spare, which I have, I'll just throw it in another one of these hearts, just because I don't like to waste any resin. There we go. So that should be another heart as well in there. So that is pretty much where I am at the minute. And I've got to wait for these to cure now for the next 2 hours. Just take them out of the mould, see what they look like, see how they're going to fit into that A4 mould. So what I'm going to do is move these to one side, and then we can get working on the next part, which is the clouds that I'm hoping to put in the background and give them sort of a 3D effect. And I don't know if that's going to work or not, because it's my first time experimenting with that. So I'm just going to move these out the way, put them somewhere safe to cure, and then we'll be right back. And we're back and hopefully ready for the next part. So the next part of this is trying to create some clouds, and I want them to have sort of a realistic cloud-like effect. And the best effect that I've seen so far was again on one of Daniel's videos where he did the 3D cloud pendants. So I'm going to try and replicate that with UV resin and titanium dioxide, but I want the clouds to be a little bit bigger, and that's my concern here, is whether or not they're going to cure if I do it on a bigger scale. I don't see why they wouldn't, but again, you don't know until you try these things. So again, I've got my, this is just a coaster mold that I don't use very often, and that gives me a good maximum size for the cloud. And then I've got this titanium dioxide powder. I got it from Amazon. I'm presuming it's the same stuff regardless of where you buy it from, but I don't know. So we will find out in a second, and it should be really white, hopefully. If it's not white, then I know I've got an issue. You know, it's very white, so that's a good start. And it just comes in its own packet within the packet. So look at that, pure white, which is good. And then I'm just gonna open the pack, and is it a self-opening one? No, so I'm going to have to use the scissors, I think, because it has been vacuum sealed in a way that doesn't make it very easy to open, which is often the case. So I'm just going to snip off a corner, and again, make sure you've got a respirator on, guys, if you're doing anything like this, because you don't want this stuff going in your lungs. You don't with resin, but never mind when you're starting to mix different chemicals and compounds that you don't know about. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but again, I would imagine it's not great if you get it in your lungs. So I'm doing quite a bit because I want quite a few clouds of different sizes. So that's about half a cup there, is what I've got, and I'm going to just do it bit by bit because I don't think I'm going to need all of that, but we'll find out as we go through the experiment. Now to see if I can get it back in the bag without getting a cloud everywhere, and I think I've managed it, so that's quite successful. Didn't get an icing sugar cloud everywhere, so there we go. That is that part. That is now put away safely, and I think that's the maximum that I'm going to need, if I'm being honest. Probably a lot less. So again, just going to get a separate pot out for this and see what happens. So I'm going to add some UV resin first of all into this cup. Not too much, just enough to sort of cover the base, because as I say, I think I'm going to want quite a few clouds for this if the effect that I want is going to work. And there's no guarantees. As I say, I've never tried this before. But what I am also going to try and do is, well, let me just clean this first. I was toying with the idea of doing 2 or 3 different shades in the cloud because I think that would make it look more natural. So again, do I or don't I? I'm going to leave that one as pure white then. And sometimes you get a slightly grey shade, I think, so just at the base of the clouds. So I'm going to do a little bit of grey, and then the blue's going to come from the background that I'm going to put in, hopefully. So again, it's just playing around with it really, I suppose. And then I'm just going to get a couple of sticks ready to mix it. And this is where actually having my UV torch hopefully will be really handy versus the nail lamp that I used to use. So this one's going to be the main one for the white, so I think it's going to need quite a bit. So quite a heaped scoop, and then this one quite a heaped scoop as well, and this one's going to be my greyish undertones hopefully. Just mixing it around, trying to create almost a paste. And there's no sunlight coming into my living room, so I should be okay. The curtains are closed. And that's almost like a titanium white powder that you would, pigment paste, I suppose, that you would buy. But I want it to be a little bit more textured. So there is quite a bit of powder that's going into this, as you can see, and I'm still not at that textured effect that I'm after. I want it almost like a thick paste. Getting there. But again, it's still a little bit wet for me. And again, the question I've got here versus the experiment that Daniel did is whether this is going to work on a larger scale cloud versus the small tiny ones that he did for the pendant, because again there's the risk that it's not going to cure enough with it being UV resin and being quite opaque. So that is a lot thicker now, still quite smooth though, and I don't think I'm going to be able to texturize it yet, so I'm going to add one more. That's feeling better. So now it's a lot thicker, and I think I can actually form those cloud-like shapes using that. And as you can see, it is really thick now, so it kind of struggles to come off, which is what I want. So that is that one. Now to mix the other one, which is going to be hopefully my slightly greyish tones. And I think I've estimated that one about right for the amount of resin in there. It's already quite thick, but just for good measure, I'll put a little tiny more in, like so. And then to this one, I don't really want it being massively different to the white, because I think it's the white that's really going to make it pop. But I am going to add just one drop, I think, or half a drop if I can get it, of black alcohol ink, which should give it a slightly greyish tone. And let me know if you think this is going to work, guys. I'm hoping it does, because it's a huge part of the overall project. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to have to think of a plan B very quickly. So that's that. Now, I'm just going to get my alcohol ink, and hopefully I can find my black. And again, you could do it in blues if you wanted to as well. I just find that naturally for me, clouds, when you look at them, they tend to have white and almost grey. But you could do them in whatever colour you want, I suppose. There we go. So that is my black alcohol ink, and I'm just going to add one drop and see what it looks like. Well, 2 went in there. I only wanted 1 because I wanted it to be a slight difference, but we'll see, because again, the titanium oxide powder is really white anyway. So again, that's not made a huge difference, those 2 drops, but if you can compare the 2, there's quite a lot of difference. I'm happy with that, actually. And then I suppose it's just start making them now. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of this grey as a base. And again, I don't want it to look too artificially made. So again, I'm just going to, I suppose, go around these edges like so. And almost creating a base layer with this greyish tone. And again, I don't think it's a huge difference, but I think you will notice it in the finished piece, hopefully. So there we go. So these are, as you can see, they're a lot larger, these cloud-like structures that I'm trying to build. So it's whether or not they're going to cure is my biggest concern with this. So now just going to go on top of that with some of this brilliant white cloud-like mixture that I've just made. And as you can see, I'm just trying to blend it in, but also leaving a little bit of texture in there. Hopefully. Like so. And it has to be thick enough that I can actually peel it off, but still thin enough that the UV light's going to go through it. So again, just going to go around it, creating some texture hopefully with my stick. Like so. And hopefully this is going to give me a realistic looking textured cloud effect, especially with those 2 different colours. Again, just playing with it until I'm happy. Shouldn't be curing even though it's UV resin yet, because there's no sunlight coming into my living room. And there, so that is, for me, hopefully cloud number 1. I nearly did it with my torch then. My actual flame torch rather than the UV light. So again, I'm just going to try and cure this now. And I want it as concentrated as I can get it, I think, just to make sure it really cures. And then I need a collection of these, because I think I'm going to need about 30 or 40. So I am going to fast forward through it as well, guys. So you haven't got to sit here watching me make 30, 40 clouds, but it's just to show you the process that I'm trying. Again, you want to flip it over and make sure that you're curing both sides as well. And I think that's had enough, hopefully. and it's kept some of the texture in, which I like. I'm just hoping that it's cured enough now to actually peel it off. And then, as I say, I'm going to duplicate this process probably about 20-30 times, hopefully getting some different shapes as well. So that's still not cured, so again, just going to give it a bit longer. And that's my concern with this, as I'm doing them a lot larger than Daniel did in his video, so it's whether or not they're going to cure at all. In fact, I might even get my big lamp out on these, my nail lamp, because the torch might not be powerful enough. In fact, yes I am. Move these to one side, and is it curing? Oh, it's starting to get a bit of a shell, but it's still not there, so this is going to take an awful long time, I think. If they cure, that is the risk here. I mean, I could always do a shell by adding an extra layer of UV resin on top, but I don't really want to do that if I can avoid it. Yeah, that's not curing, guys. So, next plan, to try and create a shell over it, but hope that it will still peel off. So I'm just going to go over it with a thin, very thin layer of the UV resin, making sure I've got a thin layer that just goes all the way across that cloud. Again, trying not to impact the texture that I've got in there though. So if plan A doesn't work, you go to plan B and see what happens. And again, with the fact that I'm going to be covering this in epoxy resin as well, this should become completely clear anyway, is the theory. But I'm just trying to find a way at the minute to cure them in, and at the minute method 1 didn't work, so we go to method 2. Always have a backup plan, guys, if plan A doesn't work. And hopefully this will now bond to the paste and still keep that cloud, and hopefully still keep that texture in there. I'm just going to give it one more minute on the back and see what happens. Right, there we go. I'm going to give it another attempt now. But you can see now with the UV resin going over it, it has kept the texture in. So as long as I can peel it off now and it keeps that, I'll be happy. But that is the question now. Here we go. And that has come off. So there we go. Plan B's worked. I've now got that cloud and it has kind of kept that texture in there. So I'm happy with that. Tiny little bubble there. But again, what I'm going to do now is probably make about 30-40 more of these guys. So I'm going to do that off camera so you guys don't have to watch, and then we'll come back. So after about 4 hours of work, I've got, I think, enough clouds now to do 2, maybe even 3 layers. And I'm reasonably happy with the way that some of them look. Some of them look better than others, but it gives you just that textured cloud effect, which hopefully submerged in the resin will bring it out a little bit more. So that is those. And as it's been about 3 hours now, the great thing about this fast cure resin is these will still be a little bit soft, I think, but I think they'll be okay to demold and have a look at. So let's have a look, shall we? Let's see if I can get you some better light. It's a really, really dull day in the UK today, so not the best of weathers, but let's see if my lamp is working. There we go, so that's a bit better. So I'm going to demold the letters first because I'm hoping that they're going to be okay and I can just use them. Well, they're still a little bit soft actually, which is unusual unless I've mismixed. So in fact, I'm going to leave them for a few more hours. And I'm surprised at that because, as I say, this normally cures up within the 3 hours, and it has been 3 hours. But it is what it is. Resin does what it wants sometimes. So we will come back in about 2 hours' time and then demold. So we're back, and it's a couple of hours. So these should really definitely be cured. Oh, they are cured now. So that's the purple with the glitter, and I think that would look okay actually with the ashes mixed in. And both of those have come out really well. And then there's this silver one with the sea deeper, which again I think would look great for the wings. So hopefully they've come out the same. So happy with the results so far. Now I just want to, it's the first time I've done these wings as well, so I'm intrigued as to what they actually look like. So as you can see, still a little bit bendy, but demoldable definitely. And yeah, I really like those. They look like little angel's wings to me. And now just looking at the shape of them, now I've actually done them, it's whether I want to do this horizontally or vertically after seeing the shape. But again, loving the detail on those. And the way I envisage these is sort of like that with the heart in the middle. So hopefully that will go. And now to look at these little letters. And again, it's still a little bit soft, which surprises me because of this fast cure. It cures really quickly. I'm just wondering if I may have mismixed, but again, they're demoldable, they're fine, and there's no rush to get these put in as they're going to be going in a bigger piece anyway. But I just want to make sure that I'm happy with the overall look and layout before I move on to the next piece. And again, mate, it could be that I mixed it wrong and I've slightly undermixed, but it's very unusual because normally with this 2-hour fast cure, it's not quite this soft when I come to demolding, but is what it is. They're coming out, which is fine, and I can leave them to sort of settle for a little bit before they actually go into the piece. So the next bit I want to do is, as I say, just try and position everything to make sure that I'm happy with the way that everything looks. So this is essentially my first layer of clouds, or at least it's gonna be when it's done. And I just want to see what it's going to look like before I sort of commit to it. So this would be it vertically. And I like the look. And I'll just zoom you out a little bit. There we go. And if I went like this, the only question I would have is there enough room like this maybe? So I probably want those a bit higher. This would then go sort of between the two. Almost looks a little bit, I don't know, stretched if I'm doing it this way. And then obviously I would have, oh no, actually I quite like it. I actually think that looks really good. So I think I'm going to go ahead, have that on the edge, just with those clouds as a rough idea anyway. I actually really like that as a design, so I think we're going to go ahead with it. So I am actually going to make up a tiny bit of resin just to actually do the heart with the ashes now. But I think that for me would look really cool as a design. And don't forget, I'm going to be doing a couple of layers of the clouds. And the good thing is, looking at this, is I should still be able to fit it all in with the one piece without it coming out too much. So that is the plan. Whether it works or not, I don't know. And look, there's a little bit of that white coming off on my finger. But happy with those. I'm going to let those fully cure up now for a second, and then I can get on with the first layer, which is just going to be a really thin layer in this of almost transparent colours, because I want it to look like the sky in the background. But I'm happy with those wings. I don't need to do those again. The only thing, and the letters, the only thing I need to redo is one of these hearts with the actual ashes in. So we'll move to that next. In fact, scrap that, guys. I want to see what it looks like horizontally first. It's an important piece, so I just want to make sure that I'm happy with it. So again, the clouds, the great thing is they can go in however I want. And I just think it might give those wings a little bit more space, in essence. And don't worry, I am going to clean this mould again before I actually do it. It's got little bits of white on it from where I haven't necessarily fully cured these clouds. But as I say, they are going into another piece, so I'm not overly concerned at this point. Maybe like this. So this would be the look horizontally. And again, I can play around with the clouds. I'm not too fussed about that at the minute. I can move them around and get them looking the way that I want. But it's more about actually, if I did it this way round, make sure the clouds are actually looking like they're the right way. And then I could have the wings pretty much across the whole span like that. There's enough room for a heart there. And then I could have the letters in this sort of corner, which again I quite like. I'm struggling. Which way round do I go? That is the question. So let me know in comments, which way round would you go if it was your piece? I'm just going to lift these a little bit and then put that there. I think that looks really cool. I'm torn between the two now, and I'm obviously going to be moving the clouds around because I want them in a particular order. And obviously I've got the small clouds as well to go on afterwards. Don't know, which way round would you go? Let me know in comments, guys. I'm thinking now, I've seen it horizontally, I'm going to go for the horizontal, you know. So I'm glad I swapped it round, actually. Yeah, I think the wings just look better horizontally to me. They look like they're less stretched. So I am going to do that now. So I'm just going to mix up a tiny bit of resin, the fast cure again, just for the purple and the glitter, actually with the ashes in there this time. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll see you in a second. So there we go, guys. I'm just mixing up some of the fast cure again. Not going to put it through the debubbler because I didn't need to with that. And just stirring it round. And obviously it's going to be a different look to this because once you put the ashes in, you're going to get a very different look. But I'm liking the general look, shall we say. So there we go. And where did I put my metallic purple? Here it is. As you can see, I've only done a tiny amount because I want to get this settled before I go to the next stage with the big piece, because I just want to make sure that I do want it horizontal rather than vertical. So I'm probably going to play around with it a couple more times just to make sure that, as I say, I'm completely happy with it. So it was the silver glitter that I used, I believe. So again, just going to put 1 scoop of that in. And I was glad to see that it didn't all pool up in one place because I thought that it was going to do that. So again, 1 scoop of the glitter, maybe a tiny bit more. And then at this point, I am actually going to, I think, add... So here we go, guys. I'm literally just going to get 2 scoops, I think, of the ashes and put that in as well. And that's all I'm going to put in. The rest can get hopefully scattered in Hungary when I go back out there. And there they are. So hopefully this is the part that will remind me of her, and she'll stay with me forever. So anyhow, so I'm just going to put some of the purple mica in. I'm going to mix that all together. And as I say, hopefully it'll all mix in together quite nicely. And you don't need a lot, guys, with the ashes, so don't overdo it. I just think that couple of scoops is more than enough. And hopefully it shouldn't be too visible either, but just visible enough, if that makes sense. Especially with this glitter and this purple mica. So I'm just going to pour it in, and if there's enough to do 2, I'll do 2, and then save the rest, or make it into something else for one of my other relatives, and hopefully they'll appreciate it. So here we go. And I think there will be enough actually for the 2, and then I can decide which one is going to be best for the piece. And there we go. There might even be enough to do the 3. And again, when you've put ashes in there, you don't really want it to go to waste. I'm sure I'll find another piece that I could put it into or something like that. So I am just going to scrape the cup as well. But again, this would work obviously with pet ashes or anything like that, for those of you that have got pets that have unfortunately passed on. But yeah, if you're doing it for somebody else as well, you want to be really respectful, obviously, of the ashes of the loved one. There we go. So I've got 3 of those curing, and I'll decide which one I'm going to use once they're cured. So I'm going to just leave those for a second, just torching off the bubbles as always. And I'm probably going to leave those for an hour or so and then come back and start on the big piece. I just want to look at it again and make sure that I'm happy, obviously, with whether it's horizontal or whether it's vertical. So I'm going to leave those to cure now and we'll be back in about an hour. So guys, and we're back, and I've decided now I want it horizontal, so I'm going to keep horizontal. I just think the design fits better. Now, unfortunately, the clouds I designed for vertical, but I still think we're going to be able to get it to work. So I've just poured 8 ounces of resin, because this holds about 24 ounces. So as I say, I'm just mixing up 8 ounces of this fast cure resin again, so that hopefully I can get one more layer on tonight as well. And the plan is with this layer is really just a base layer. So put a bit of colour in there to make it look a light blue like the sky, and I might toy around and maybe have a little bit of orange here just so it looks like the sun's rising. Again, I don't know if it'll work. We will find out, but I really hope so for this one. So I'll see you guys in a second once it's mixed up. So we're back, and I've mixed up, as I say, about just over 8 ounces of resin here. So I'm just going to pour it into these 2 separate cups, because the plan is to have 2 colours, and I think I'm going to need more of one than the other. So most of it's going to go into this cup here. And I'm not worried about the minor little bubbles that are in there at the minute, because, as I say, with this fast cure resin, as soon as you put it in a bubble removal machine, that's what happens. However, they do come out when it cures. So I'm just making sure that I'm getting all of it out. And the plan is here to do 2 very different colours. So the first one being blue, because obviously the sky is mainly blue. And then it's whether I experiment with it as well, which is always a possibility, because I have got some white as well, and I'm just thinking it might give us quite a good effect. So that is my 2 inks, and the first colour I'm going to mix is that blue. I want it to be quite light, as I say, because I want it to be transparent, and I've got some Let's Resin dye, so I'm just going to put a couple of drops of that in it and see what colour that gives me. Because I don't want it too dark, but I do want it to still look blue. Again, at this point, trying to stir it really slowly, because of all the work I've just put into getting the bubbles out, I don't really want to be adding more. So again, there's some of that colour's going in, and it is quite a light blue at this point, so it's whether I decide to add any more or not. I think I'm just going to keep stirring it slowly, because some of it hasn't mixed in. You can just see it on the sides, and it's because it's such a thick resin, it takes it a second. But that's what you get for working with 2-hour cure times. There's both advantages and disadvantages, I suppose, in that respect. But I can see there it's a nice light blue colour coming through now. I just want to make sure it's all mixed around, and hopefully not creating too many bubbles by mixing it around. So there we go. So that's going to be my first colour, which is that light blue. I'm pretty comfortable that it's all mixed in now, he says. And then I'm going to go on to this second colour, which I want to be almost yellow, I suppose. So I'm going to try and mix a colour here, which is slightly yellowy orange, I suppose, is what I'm going for. But I'm going to do this one with a little bit of alcohol ink, I think. So I think that'll be too dark for me. Pop in a few of those bubbles though. So then I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow, lemon yellow resin dye to it to just lighten it up. And I think just, again, maybe 2 drops should be enough. And again, I don't know if this is going to work at all, but I just want it to look like, I suppose, a natural sunset would. But I don't want it to be too opaque in the background, because I think that will actually spoil the effect of the clouds, which I've spent the best part of today trying to get right. So There we go, just wipe my stick, and now it's going to go into the other one. And I am going to give all this a wipe again before I pour. So again, that's quite a nice orange. I'm just really going around the sides to make sure it's thoroughly mixed. And the hope is here is that it will kind of look like a sunrise. I don't know if I've picked the right colours at all, but as I say, I'm just going to wipe everything again before I actually pour. And the key is going to be here is to try and get it in that 2 layers. So again, I just don't want anything in here that might affect it working. So I'm going to go in with the orange pretty much at the base, like so, and then I might just put a little bit in this centre bit here, not too much. There we go, so that's pretty much my orange now, and then the rest, I've hopefully done enough of this blue, is going to be this blue. And I think that looks like a nice sky colour. And as I say, I just wanted enough to go to the edges and give me that thin layer, which I think this should just about do. And then it's whether I do place my first layer of clouds in now or whether I wait a second. Again, just trying to get it all out the cup. There's no point leaving any in there. And again, just looking at it, that orange could have been a little bit lighter. But we'll see what it looks like in the end. I don't think we'll know until we see the end result with this. And what I'm going to do is just swirl around so it slightly naturally blends the colours a little bit. Just between that blue and that yellow. And then what I might do is just take this up a little bit like so. Almost like a sunrise, I suppose. And then I'm just going to go around the edges to make sure there's no bubbles in there. And then I think, because of the depth I've got already with this layer, I am going to risk it and try and place the first layer of clouds in. Probably completely the wrong thing to do. And I should probably just let the whole thing cure first. And it's probably just me being impatient. But just getting rid of those surface bubbles as well. And then what I've got to remember is I want those wings to still fit in there as well. So I'm going to go with a couple of the larger ones first. And then it's just picking which way round I prefer the look. And with this one, I think I prefer it this way round. And if it does slightly blend with that blue around the edges, then so be it. And then I've got this bigger one here as well. And as I say, guys, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if I'm going to get the effect I want. This is just, I suppose, playing around at this point, which is a little bit risky when I've spent all day making these little clouds. Just trying to get it looking a little bit natural. And if I've got a little small one, that can go there. And just position them where I'm reasonably happy. And for me, as I say, this is just that first layer going in. And I think that is enough. Now I'm hoping I've got a tiny bit of the clear left, which I haven't. So I'm just going to let this cure now. And that is going to be my first layer, essentially. Again, just blitzing those bubbles off, especially now I've put those clouds in. And again, I think I probably should have waited, guys, but I'm impatient and I want to get this project done. So I'm going to leave that for a couple of hours now and then come back in with the second layer, which is going to be predominantly clear, except for those. I might add a little bit of the blue still, but it's going to be predominantly clear, except for now the next layer is going to be putting the wings in, the heart in, and those letters in as well. But then it will be just a clear layer on top, and maybe a couple of clouds, just to give us that 3D effect, hopefully. So there we go. And I can already see, I think the wings and the heart, because I haven't put it in that base layer, and the letters may be slightly elevated. But again, I'm not worried about that because I'm doing it this way round. It's not about what the back looked like, it's what this front's going to look like. So again, we'll see how we get on, but I'll see you guys in about 2 hours. In fact, what I'm going to do, guys, because I've got some left over of the white cloud paste that we mixed up, is just get my little dabbing tool and just put a few little wispy effects into the resin as well. Hopefully making it look quite natural. And especially around the edges, just covering up where the blue's touching the cloud, I suppose. Like so. And as I say, anywhere where I put it on too thick is probably where I'm going to place the second cloud anyway. So hopefully a couple of hours, it'll be ready for the next coat and it will look good, but we'll find out together. So I'll see you guys then. Hi guys, and I'm back, and yeah, this is the first layer pretty much cured now, and I just want to show you these hearts because I think they came out really well, and the ashes are in there, but you can't really tell. And actually, I'm one of those people that actually likes that fact, because I think if you've got people around, you can just see the different tones in there. Behind the glitter, behind the purple, you can just about see where the ashes are. They're there and there. And I didn't want it to look too ashy, if that makes sense, because I think it can be a bit morbid if you've got something displayed in your house and people see that it's ashes. So I just thought that I didn't want it too concentrated, and I think that they came out perfect. So now it's going to be about pouring the next layer on, trying to get these letters in, trying to get these angel wings in the right position, and a few more clouds as well, just to make them more 3D. Now I'm going to mix up probably another 6 ounces of resin now. And with this one, I'm not going to use the fast cure because I'm going to leave it overnight before I do the third layer anyway. So there's no point in me sort of wasting all of my fast cure resin. So I'm going to mix up about 6 ounces this time. First one was 8, but I think because there's more going into this one, I'm going to need less resin. So I'm going to mix up 6, put it through the debubbler, and I'll be straight back. So here we go, guys, and I think the main thing in this one is going to be lining everything up just where I want it to be. So I've mixed up 6 ounces. The first thing I'm going to do is just go over the clouds that are sticking out a little bit and make sure that they're all ever so slightly covered in resin, so that hopefully I know that everything what I put down is going to get adhered to with the resin and not have any nasty air holes. I'm also viewing this as a chance, hopefully, to cover up any bits that I don't particularly like. So again, just going over each and every cloud first of all, and then I'm just going to go around the whole piece, hopefully just putting a thin layer on. And now I think I'm left with about 3 ounces now, so I think I'm going to have to start placing my pieces in a minute. But I just want to make sure that there's a thin layer of resin covering the piece. And I'm not trying to make it completely flush here because I don't think it will be. And I think I actually might be better off, because I am going to come in with a third layer anyway. Just making sure that there's none of these sort of air bubbles like so. But I still want to leave a little bit to just go over the top of everything, hopefully. And this is where I find out I should have mixed 8 ounces again rather than the 6, but we will see. And it's already starting to look a little bit more 3D now, so I'm getting a bit happy with the way that it looks. So there we go. I think that is pretty much it, and I'm left with about 1.5 ounces of resin. So that is that. Now what I'm going to do is just torch it all again. Getting rid of any of those surface bubbles, And then the next stage, I think, is going to be just placing, and there's a little something in the resin there. Looks like a little eyelash of mine. And I don't want that staying in there. So there we go, that is now out. So now I just want to, I think, start by placing the extra clouds, which is hopefully going to give it that sort of three-dimensional feel. So there's that one. And I'm just moving them around a little bit so that I'm happy. And I'm just being selective over which ones I prefer the look of that I made earlier. Again, I know they're not all perfect, but I think this is really going to help with that three-dimensional look, hopefully. And again, I'm just placing them on top pretty much of the others. And again, let me know in comments, guys, if you think this is going to work, if I'm going to get a three-dimensional look at all, or if it's just going to look a mess when it's all done. I'm hoping not, because as I say, it's one of those pieces I've put an awful lot of time into. In fact, I'm going to move that up there, and there's a reason why. Same with this one, actually. I want it further up over there, and then maybe one of my small ones can go just on the edge to cover up that piece that I don't like. But hopefully this is going to create a bit of a three-dimensional effect. I don't know. It's my first time doing it. But you know what? I'm quite liking the look so far. But I don't want to overdo it with these clouds either, which I think there's a risk in a minute if I go too far. So I think that's it for the clouds. Now I've got to start thinking about these wings. And again, these are going to be the important bit, I think, to get as close to parallel as I can. And you can see there, it's that cloud that's stopping it being parallel. So again, I'm going to have to move it, because otherwise it's going to stick out far too much, which I don't want. So I'm going to move it across here where it's not sticking out quite as much, so that I can put my first angel wing in. I didn't think about this properly, but wherever I'm putting the angel wing really doesn't want to be on top of a double cloud, because it's keeping it more elevated out of the surface. So it's not ideal, this, but this is where the positioning is so important for me. This one I might have to actually take out, or we'll come back to that one in a minute. But the wings are going to be one of the most important parts of this for me, so I just want to make sure that I can get them in reasonably parallel, like so. Then I'm going to select which heart I'm going to use, and I think it's going to be this one. I want it reasonably central, and again, I don't mind, it doesn't have to be perfect, this, because I'm expecting these to stick out a little bit. Now again, this one, because of the cloud, is not quite going level, so I'm just going to move the cloud down and then bring the letter back in, like so. And the lettering, as I say, I want to keep reasonably even, including the spacing. And this is where the clouds become a bit of an issue. So again, that cloud for me is in the way. It needs to come out, and then the A needs to come down a little, and that cloud there just needs maneuvering. And then this A can come down a little bit further, and then the D. And there we go. So that is my lettering. That's that in. And do you know what? I think I've got enough clouds. I might put one of these small ones back in, just up here, where I've got the room. And I'm reasonably happy with that. I think there's enough clouds in there that you can see the detail, but not too many. And again, I'm just going to cover this one up because I don't actually like it. And see how we get on. But I'm reasonably happy with that. I think once that's now covered, so it will take probably another 2 layers. The main thing is making sure that these wings look reasonably even, which they do, I think. Again, in relation to that heart. So I'm just manoeuvring a little bit. And then I'm just going to add the tiniest bit of this white paste in again. Just around the edges. Creating a little bit of a wispy effect around some of them. Not too much though, because I think that's where it went wrong last time on the last layer. There's almost a little bit too much of that wispiness. So it's not perfect, guys, I know that, but do you know what? I like it, and I think that's the main thing. I think it's got the sentimental value for me. It's got her favourite colours. And you know what? It'll be a permanent reminder for me that hopefully my sister's always around me. So what I'm going to do is actually, because I'm not going to be doing much in that 3rd layer, again, where I put that white in there, it's almost spoiling the effect a little bit. So I'm just going to pull it through a little. And now the rest of my resin I'm going to pour literally over the wings. And that heart. And the lettering. And then what I'm going to do is mix up another 6 ounces and just pour it over the top, because I think, for me, it is about there. I don't think I want to do too much else to it. I actually quite like the look at the moment. If I have another cloud, which I do here, that I prefer, I might just stick that in there. Yeah, I don't like how much of that white I've put in. I'm going to try and take some out. I think it was too wispy, that cloud. Again, just taking it out a little bit like so. And again, there's too much wispiness on that one as well. I don't mind a little bit of wispiness, but I don't want too much. There we go. So yeah, I'm just going to mix up, as I say, another 6 ounces. And that should fill this. I'm going to have bits that are going to stick out a little bit, the wings. But I actually quite like that. I think it adds to the 3-dimensionalness of the piece. So yeah, I'm just going to mix up another 6 ounces of resin, fill it up, and then we can see what it looks like together in the morning. So here we go, guys, just mixed up another 7 ounces, and I think this should fill it. So I'm just going to go over all of the pieces that I've just put in, making sure that they're all completely covered in the resin. And then, as I say, hopefully this should be the final coat now, and then I can just leave it for 20 or so hours and then demold and see what it looks like. And I know it's not perfect, guys, but do you know what, for a first attempt I don't think it's bad, and it will be a permanent reminder for me of my sister, and she'll always be with me, you know. And I think that's what these sorts of pieces are all about. It's not about getting perfection, but it's a lot better than I could have done a year ago, I can tell you that much. So I'm just going to put the rest in, and I think that has pretty much filled it. I have got a slightly unlevel surface though, which does worry me a little bit. Seems to be more full at that end than this end, so I am going to prop it up with something in a minute. And the only bit that's really sticking out a little bit is part of that wing there, but I quite like that. As I say, I think it adds to the 3D element. It's only a tiny bit unlevel, so I'm just putting a popsicle stick or 2 under this side, and then hopefully that will make it completely level. So I'm just going to torch off the bubbles, and then that will be it. So hopefully this cures well, and I don't have any nightmare bubbles or anything like that, and hopefully it goes crystal clear and it shows some of those 3D effects of those clouds. But I do like the way it looks, and I know the clouds aren't perfect, but I think they've still created that sort of 3D wispy effect that I was looking for. And again, the top of that D is just slightly sticking out, but you know what, that's pretty much in line with the wing, so doesn't bother me too much. And that's about it, guys. So I'm just going to let it cure up now, so it should take about 24 hours. Hopefully in about 10 I can move it and do another project, and then we can demold this tomorrow and see what it's come out like. But I hope you liked it. I just think it's something different to do in memory of those that you've lost, and it's a good way of utilising some of the ashes so that you've got that permanent reminder. But overall, I'm reasonably happy with the piece. I think Dawn would have been. And I'm hoping that, you know, she's up there somewhere looking down at this with my mum and thinking, wow, at least I'm still remembered. So there we go, guys. Bit of an emotional one for me, but I hope you've enjoyed it. We are going to demold this tomorrow, and then that will be the end of the piece. So guys, it is the next day and I'm ready to demold this piece, but in general I'm really happy with the way that it's come out, and I hope my sister would have been too. And as I say, the clouds have come out nice, not perfect, but I think as resin artists we're always overly critical about the things that we do, but I do quite like the overall effect, and I think it's going to be really interesting once it's demolded just to see what the transparency is like on it as well. So I am going to try and get a better picture. As you can tell, I'm not at my usual workstation at the minute because that is crowded. In fact, I'm going to move over to the coffee table and get us a better view. So here we go, guys. And as I say, it's been quite an emotional one for me, but I think there's a lot of people out there where Christmas isn't, unfortunately, their favourite time of year because of losing loved ones, you know, and unfortunately it happens a lot, especially around Christmas. But I'm liking the glass-like effect that I've got so far. And there we go. So I'm really happy with that. I think for a first attempt as well, got those wings in there, got the ashes in the heart, got her name in there. I'm probably going to deburr the edges just because it's slightly higher, but I do love the 3D effect I've got as well. And I'm going to hold it up to some light now, and you can see how transparent it actually is. And there we go, guys. Trying to get you a good angle, but it's very difficult in my small space. But fully transparent, like glass. And for me, it's turned out really well. So I'm hoping you agree it's a nice piece. And I will see you guys on the next one. But don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.